Hey everybody, welcome back to another JBoz gaming video. I'm your host JBoz, and today we're going to continue with map strategy. And the next map that I'm going to do is Himmelsdorf. Let's get into it. All right, on Himmelsdorf, there's the standard battle, the encounter battle, and the team destruction. Really, the map plays somewhat similar. There is a difference between the standard battle and the encounter battle, and we're going to get into that, which honestly is what prompted this video today. Was I was in a match earlier. It was an encounter battle, and people clearly did not understand how to play an encounter battle. So we'll cover that, and we'll also cover how the map plays in a standard battle, and potentially how it can play in a team destruction. Because it's a team destruction is going to be more played like an encounter battle, or should be at least most of the time. So okay, let's get into it. Let's start with the routes of attack. There are many routes of attack on Himmelsdorf. The green, there's spawn points on the south side of the map and on the north point of the map in a standard battle. Today, I've just chosen for the red team to be at the top and the green team to be at the bottom. And of course, this is the encounter location or encounter flag if it was an encounter situation. This won't be here if we're in a standard battle. So standard modes of attack in standard battle. So here we go. The greenies have lots of different options. There's, oh. Why am I blue? I'm green. I'm green, people. All right, so we have the back road here up to the hill, the castle, if you will, that you can come over. And this is a huge hill. So it takes some time for you to take slower tanks up this direction, but this is one avenue of attack. And of course, as many maps, there's various alternates to this route, right, to the actual cap circle of the enemy. But this is one way to take. There is other ways to take the hill as well. This way is actually even longer, so you can take this way. And of course, either one of these ways you can go in front of the castle, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But there's just different ways you can take to get to the right flank and to get to the other side of the map and capture the enemy cap circle. And of course, the left side or left flank has kind of some similar paths where you can kind of go out along the train tracks and take this backside into the enemy cap circle. Okay. And there's of course alternate routes through this. Now there's trains here, so you have to either go in front of the trains to get to the outside, or you have to turn and go to the backside of the trains. But these are actually trains that will prevent you from just going straight across. And of course, this is a wall. This is a train as well. This is a solid building, and so there is some hard cover on this side. But this is all level ground, where this is elevated ground. All of this up here is actually high. In fact, you can't even get into this part of the map, okay? The map plays up here, overlooking all of this portion of the map, okay? So that's the left and right. We're not quite done with the left flank here. The other alternatives is down the 3 line. People refer to this as the zero line because it traverses the 0 line. This is known as the 1-2 line, and this route is known as the 3 line. And so you can go that road. You can clearly take alternative routes up the actual tracks and into the cap circle as well. So kind of that's the left flank, okay? There is another alternative. There is an 8 line, and I refer to this 8 line, and I think others do too. I could be crazy, so forgive me if I'm putting a label on something that others don't use, but I refer to the 8 line because it's kind of a bent road. It's a curved road. is the banana road because it kind of is just curved, and so I refer to this as banana road, and you can also traverse it, and there's many options to go to the cap circle at that point from the 8 line, obviously. Uh, you can take different routes. Okay. Um, there's also a direct, very direct and straight through route that you can take. Now you have to go around the fountain in the middle, but in general you can go straight down the middle of the map to get to the other opposing cap circle. And of course, there's a little bit of an alternative to this in that you can fly up this center road and either come over to the center map, on over to the 8 line or banana road, or take a left and go up the 3 line, right? So this has options as well. It's just not as direct as maybe some of the other routes. Okay. Now the red team is pretty similar in that all the lines would just reverse, except for this situation where you would actually be taking these lines, right, to alternate the middle route, and of course you could go the middle as well. So these would be in addition or different than this side, and that's just because it's on the opposing side of the map. But there is the same options, right? That the red team will have, that the green team will also have. So that being said, um, if you are a tank destroyer, you may not choose to go up the 9 line, or I'm sorry, the 0 line, because this hill is kind of very time consuming, and you're spawning in the middle of the map, and so by the time you get over here, I mean you could have lost the hill. So as a tank destroyer, you'll typically probably get defensive positions. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not green. We'll do green tank destroyers right now. So they'll set up on opposing sides of the 3 line, and then you'll have potentially a tank destroyer set up here for the red team, right? So you will have tank destroyers taking up these defensive positions. You will have tank destroyers moving up in opposing positions on the banana road or the 8 line. So that's also, you'll see that a lot where they will try to hold down and defend these approaches of attack. You will also have tank destroyers either behind this building out here, or moving further up and getting in position here to shoot down the tracks, because a lot of this is fairly open. The train might prevent you, so there's even opportunity to move tank destroyers for the green team up to these positions to get even further mid-map shots. Just know that the red team is going to have the opportunity to move tank destroyers into these positions on this side of the building, as well as they might even have tanks. Excuse me. They might have tanks sitting down here, obviously countering anybody pushing too far up. This is a train. This is a train. So you might have tank destroyers just sitting on the other end of this train, again sniping down the tracks. So yeah, that's how the kind of the left side plays out. Is that you'll have and actually there's one more position, for the green team where a tank destroyer might sit is right here to shoot down the tracks and counter the tank destroyer here. So kind of the opposing teams will have the different positions, but they will have their defenses aligned toward one another, and that's how this left flank will play out. We'll get to the light tanks and maybe the medium tanks here in a minute. And this map we'll get to tiers here also in a second. I don't want to go too fast. So anyway, on this side of the map, we're going to go all the way over to the right side of the map, is what I'll call the east side of the map. You'll have tank destroyers taking up, because there is a little bit of a hill here, and there is definitely the slope. So up here is flat, Okay, but down here there is a little bit of a hill here behind, so that it kind of goes like this. But up here generally is flat. Okay, and so if you have a tank that has good gun depression, maybe a tank destroyer or something like that, they will set up and oppose one another at these positions. So for the red team, there might be a tank destroyer or tank destroyers sitting here, and for the green team, there might be a defensive tank, either a tank destroyer or a heavy, sitting here. Now, of course, there's further pushed up positions, such as you might have tank destroyer here or a heavy in this position, and you might have tank destroyers here on the opposite side of this kind of rubble. This is the actual castle. There's kind of rocks here, right on the edge of the castle that people kind of just juxtapose each other at this point. Um, Now, not only would you have tank destroyers here, but you might have heavier tanks here, like actual heavies. Now, even though they are slow to get up and they probably won't get in these positions early, they still can get in these positions, get hull down, or get behind these rocks and keep their weak lower plates hidden and side scrape the sides and so on. So at higher tiers, this is really a heavy spot to brawl. Okay. And so you'll see this map play a little bit differently because the speed of the game, the map plays differently at higher tiers versus at lower tiers. And that's why a lot of high tier players come down to the lower tiers, get their hat handed to them because they don't understand that the hill is not necessarily the key to this map. At the lower tiers. At the higher tiers, it's a key to the map, even in standard battle, because this is where the heavies brawl. This is where the heavy tank destroyers are going to go. This is where the fight is either won or lost most times, because all of these players are usually playing more defensively and have taken up pretty strong defensive positions. And they're not trying to really attack the enemy. They're trying to wait to see the results of the hill, which means then they can proceed because their teams now have won the sniping positions off the hill. And that's why the hill is important. It is also important at the lower tiers, don't get me wrong. But you can win the hill in the lower tiers and still lose the game. Because what happens in lower tiers is, even though you have won the hill, the game plays so fast, but by the time you've won the hill, the enemy team could have actually eliminated defensive positions and now are sitting on your cap. And you can't uncap them necessarily from the hill on either team. So the reverse is true. You could win the hill as the red team, but because the green team pushed up quickly and eliminated any defenses that you had and are sitting on your cap circle, you can still lose the game. Okay, so that's why in the lower tiers, these lower positions and being able to defend your cap is important, because you have to hold your defense long enough for someone to win the hill. It takes time to win the hill, and so that's why the game plays differently at the different tiers. So this is a map that really is different if you're playing those upper tiers, let's say 6 and above versus 6 and below. Okay, that would be lower tiers. All right. So this is where the heavies would go on this right flank, and the tank destroyers would take up defensive positions. Arties. Let's talk about arties on this map. I have heard many people say that Himmelsdorf is a terrible arties map. I have to be honest and tell you, in my opinion, that is simply not true. It is, you have to be map knowledgeable as an arty in order to have success on Himmelsdorf. Because a lot of people feel like Himmelsdorf is a brawl map, and it is. It is a brawl map, and it's more arty safe than other maps out there, and that may be generally true. But for the most part, if you have a skilled arty, you can be highly effective on Himmelsdorf. Now, This is as you go up in tiers, it becomes less true because again, the speed of the game. For example, lower tier arties shoot much faster than higher tier arties. And that's why in lower tiers, arties can actually help dictate who wins or loses the battle. They don't determine it, but they can help support who wins or loses the battle in where they position, and their map knowledge can help their team win the game. And so for the green team, you will find if you're in standard mode, then you're going to find the arties positioned on this back line, either on either side of the church, okay? Just depending on where they spawn. And that gives them shots into the middle of the map. Certainly down these straightaways is not arty safe. They will also have generally pretty clean shots on both sides to the tracks. So unless you're behind a train or behind one of these buildings, if you're streaking down the tracks, then you're not arty safe. Okay. Also, these arties will have some shots on their back sides of the castle, meaning that if you've won the hill and the arties are sitting in middle position, you now could be exposed if you're sniping on this side trying to take out enemies. Well, arty may be able to hit you on the hill. Okay, so just be aware of that. There are sniping positions on the hill that you should be aware of. There is one here that kind of overlooks the front line of the red team in this case. There is a sniping position here that overlooks not the front line, but certainly a portion of the enemy's middle section of the green team. And then, of course, if you're positioned on this little, it's hard to draw here, but if you're positioned up on this kind of hill, because there's, I didn't draw it very well. Sorry, guys. Let me redo that. I'm a terrible graphic artist here. You kind of draw this. If you're setting up on the high side of this, you can overlook the lip, and you can shoot into and down the angled road here if you're the red team and you've won the hill. If you're the green team, you can sit here a little bit higher, or even there because there's a slit in the lip. You can shoot down into the the red team's front row, if you will, of the city. And if you're sitting high enough on this ridge line, you can actually get shots anywhere into the middle. And so winning the hill is important. I mean, you can even take shots into the tracks as long as you're shooting between the buildings. So the hill is important at all tiers, but it just becomes a little less important at lower tiers because there's other avenues, other ways to really win this map. Higher tiers, it's usually about the hill. You have to win the hill, or at least control the hill long enough, which is like a long time, in order for your units down here to somehow poke a hole in the defenses of the enemy on the lower side of the map. Okay? So, all right. So we've talked about tank destroyers. We've talked about artillery. We talked a little bit about heavies. And really, heavies can go many different places on this map, though you want the bulk of your heavies on the hill. But they can be, they can set up in places like where the tank destroyers are setting and get hauled down on these corners of the 8 line, or what I call Banana Road, and hold down that position. They can get on the corners of the town and hold down the 3 line, whether it's here, or inside the front row. I tend to tell people not to set up in the front rows because at some point you're going to be suspect to fire from whoever actually wins the hill. Hopefully it's your side and you'll be safe. And as long as you're map aware and keeping an eye on who's winning the hill, you can in early game position here to hold down the flank. So that's where and again, as the enemy attacks, you can fall back to different positions in the city to set up a new line of defense. Okay. So heavies can really go in a lot of different directions. There's no one flank that's just completely off limits to heavy tanks in this map. But there are more arty safe areas, and that's usually the hill, at least the backside of the hill opposing the team, and also behind any kind of building structures that allow you to hold down your side of the map. Mediums, same thing. They go to the hill and can help win the hill. They can also take up defensive positions on the corners, and they play in any of these areas that I've got marked as tank destroyers just fine. Mediums can also push the flank, so they can try to make progress down Banana Road as long as they're supported by tank destroyers and heavy tanks, and they can also try to make progress down the tracks or the three line. Again, they need to have support from their tank destroyers or heavy tanks, but that's how the mediums will play or can play this map. Arties also, especially ambitious Arties, can reposition further out this direction towards the tracks. So you might have some Arties that are quicker, and they can get out here, and then they can spot and shoot and support the three line, well, the 1-2 line all the way over to the three line, right? When Arties do this, though, they do take away their opportunity to shoot anywhere into the middle and on the backside of this map. Because they're usually too close to buildings and structures to shoot over them. Now, if they get further out here, they can certainly get shots back onto the castle side or the mountain side of the map. But that's also risky because if you don't have good map control here, you can eventually get spotted, and then once you're spotted, you'll have counter arty fire or potential light tanks or tank destroyers trying to take you out. Okay, so that's on this side of the map. On this red side of the map, arties can sit near their cap circle, obviously. They can also position here, and they might, but it will take them some time. Green can do the same, though it generally is not as good for the green side because this is a little bit more elevated of a hill, and you don't have as much protection here if somebody comes down the hill. All you have to do is turn and run. Where here, all you have to do is reposition behind this building, and you can start shotgunning. So that's why it's a little more risky. It's still available to green arties, but it's just a little more risky, and that's why this is more of a play on this north side of the map. And of course, you can have arties take up positions on this back side as well. Either daggone it, I'm always on the wrong team color. Here or even all the way over in this corner. Again, though, in this corner, little harder. It takes so long to get over here. By the time you do get over here, you are limiting shooting back on this side of the map because you got trains and this big warehouse here. So the most you can do is probably cover the 1-2 line. Okay. So that's tank destroyers, artillery, and medium tanks. Again, we've talked mostly about heavies, and they can pretty much go anywhere on the map and try to make progress up to the cap circles in a controlled way. Much like other maps that I've talked about already that I've made videos for, if you move up certain positions, certain lines, if you will, it does no good to win a line if you don't have control of positions that can get you in crossfires. So, for example, if you are able to move up the 8 line down Banana Road and you make it to this point, let's say you're the green team and you're just hell bent on and you kill people and you make it this point, that's great. The problem is if you've not won the hill, you've not won this side. Now what's going to happen is you're going to have tanks coming here to get you in a crossfire. You might have tanks back here still shooting down the 8 line to keep you from making any further progress. You'll have tanks here, so you'll be kind of in a crossfire, almost a 3-way crossfire, because you pushed up too soon. And I see this mistake a lot on the 8 line on Banana Road. They make that great progress early game, and then it all falls apart. The same is true of the 3 line. The 3 line's even more open than Banana Road, so not only are you going to suffer probably more damage from hidden tank destroyers and such. But you probably have arty fire that's also going to wreak havoc on you as you try to make progress up the 3 line. But if you do, and let's take the red team for this example. As a red team, if I make progress up to this corner and have not won the 1-2 line, well, they can put tanks on my rear here, and they can still have defensive tanks still in the city holding any further progress, and now I'm in a crossfire. Okay? So map awareness is very important just in general on any map. But for these maps where you can get yourself in a crossfire, map awareness is absolutely critical to make sure. And I guess it's not just map awareness. It's knowing not just where the enemy is, but it's knowing where your allies are, or sometimes more importantly, where they are not. If you don't have allies that are really helping secure, your potential crossfire points, basically your rear or your sides, then it's risky to move up. It's risky to overplay your hand. And so that's why you see teams have early success, and they jump out to a tank lead, if you will, and then all of a sudden they lose the game and they're like, what happened? Well, this is what happened is you probably moved too fast and without control. Remember my video on controlled aggression. You want without control, and before you know it, you're handed a loss. So now let's talk about light tanks on Himmelsdorf. This map is not a light tank friendly map. That doesn't mean you can't have success as a light tank on Himmelsdorf. I'm just saying light tanks would prefer to play a different map most of the time because they can get out, get around people, get up into early position, and have advantage on folks that they're trying to outmaneuver. Himmelsdorf, it's hard to outmaneuver the enemy team because, like I said, they've got early defensive positions that they're entrenched in, and it's not easy for a light tank to root somebody out of an entrenched position. So if you have a tank destroyer on Banana Road and you have a light tank, who's going to win that fight? Well, the tank destroyer is going to win that fight. Sure, the light tank can get some hits on him, but he's not going to do enough damage to trade shots where it's advantageous for the light tank to trade shots because he's going to lose. And the same is true of any of these lines of progress. And so light tanks sometimes struggle. Well, where light tanks can have success on Himmelsdorf is getting in early position to see and help your team understand, where the enemy is, and also where they're not. That doesn't mean that you have to push up to where they're not. So if you're, let's say you're a light tank and you come barreling out of the spawn point down the 3 line, there's going to be tank destroyers here, right? So don't just keep going up the 3 line. Go up till you spot them and then quickly turn off, right? Turn off, maybe come back around. Don't run down because they're more than likely there's going to be defenders that are going to annihilate you as you come down the tracks. But if you turn off and spot these folks, well, now your tank destroyers, they're lit up, they're hidden, and they have advantage. So you're providing your allies advantage by using your light tanks to really kind of spot on Himmelsdorf, okay? And especially on the lower half of Himmelsdorf. So a light tank that comes up and spots this tank destroyer can quickly get behind a building here, right? And not take the tank destroyer on, and then when he's either not spotted or goes dark, then retreat back, right? And so on. So using your light tanks to push the lines to spot is what you should be doing on Himmelsdorf as a light tank. The areas that you might be able to do the circle of death are in the middle and on the tracks and up in the, and I'm going to talk about the castle area and the mountainside here in just a minute, because light tanks can play a role up here as well. But these areas where you can do the circle of death, so to speak, and get around tanks and use your mobility and your speed to out-traverse their guns is very limited on a Himmelsdorf, and also is usually only available to you late game. Because if you try to do this early in game, well, like I said, they're going to have crossfire set up. So you're going to be taking multiple, you're going to be having multiple people shoot at you from multiple directions as you try to do the circle of death on maybe a heavy or a medium tank that you can outrun or outmaneuver. Okay? So you have to be pretty map aware as a light tank, and you really need to help your team spot the enemy, and more importantly, just understand where they are and potentially where they are not. On Himmelsdorf, I'm constantly counting tanks. Like, let's say the enemy has 15 tanks to start with. I want to know, well, are there 8 or more tanks on this side or 8 or more tanks on this side? Because I want to know what their weak side is. Most times their weak side is this side, right? But because they only need maybe 3 or 4 tank destroyers over here, or 3 or 4 tanks over here to defend this side, they don't need a lot of tanks. So it doesn't make this side less secure, but you do know that the enemy has more tanks on this side. And the reason that's important, as they start to lose tanks on this side, these people start to get nervous. They start to hedge their bets. They may not stay in their defensive positions, and now you can constantly be testing their defensive prowess on this side, right? And of course, as you break through, then it's a collapse, because you usually have numbers, and those numbers start to roll over the weaker side, right? And it's true of the green side as well. I mean, usually the strong side is to the hill, as it should be. So how do light tanks play or have success on the hill? Well, as I mentioned, this is a huge hill here, and it takes a lot of tanks a fairly long amount of time to traverse this hill and get up to these defensive positions. Light tanks can get up here, like, so let's take a green light tank. So let's say you rush up the hill because you're fast and you can probably get up there quicker than most people. And so what I would call a pre-hill battle is usually between light tanks, where they've rushed their light tanks up to the castle, you've rushed your light tanks up to the castle, you're spotting each other. Whoever kind of wins that little battle, one takes out the other team's light tanks, which is very important because that really helps the team know where the enemy is. But you can also, if they don't send light tanks up here, you can run over here and spot and see all the enemy that's coming up. Now, don't sit there. Just look over, see what's coming, and now you start to count tanks. Like, oh, there's 8 tanks coming up the hill, and you see that there's only 3 tanks from your team. Well, guess what? You're probably going to lose the hill, right? And so you get early knowledge by light tanks really kind of getting up into early positions and being able to spot. And what also did I tell you about the castle hill? Well, it overlooks the rest of the map. So not only can you look down the opposite side of the hill, but you can get up here and start spotting all the positions, all the defensive positions, because you're overlooking the map. So you're starting to make the team aware. You can actually help people over here know that there are tanks in this position. And you might even have some early sniping ability to hit him a couple of times. Now, I wouldn't hang out up here as a light tank for too long, because they will eventually just start firing back on the hill. And you are overexposed potentially to arties that can defensively hold down the hillside, especially if they're good arties or arty players. And so the light tanks can play a really good early role. And how to say this? That's for higher tiers. For lower tiers, light tanks roll up here even gets greater, because light tanks can come up here in early tiers, like below 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Those tiers, because there's less heavies, there's less heavy tank destroyers. Light tanks can come up here and hold down this hill just like any other tank in the game. So this almost becomes also a spot where light tanks can hang out and push and win the hill, and also snipe across the map. So getting to this spot, winning this spot, generally wins the game. More important in higher tiers, important in lower tiers, but you don't always win the game if you win the hill, because of the speed of the game, and you might lose what I'll call the valley, the lower side of the map, which is most of the map. You got to remember they don't have to win. They don't have to win the 8 line, the Banana Road. You might have won the hill. You might have won Banana Road, and they're still capping out. You know what I mean? Because they came down the tracks and they're sitting here happy as a clam to take a win from you, right? So and also true is you could have won the hill, held 1, 2, 3, right? You held this side, you've won the hill, but somehow you've lost Banana Road. Guess what? Because you can't shoot them from the hill on Banana Road, because this is so elevated that you have no tanks that with the gun depression to shoot and hold down Banana Road, that they just come and cap anyway. And now you're all rushing back to get them off the cap, right? So the speed of the game at the lower tiers is very different on how this map plays. So with that being said, and we've talked about all the tank positions, these tank positions are, for the most part, still valid when we talk about the encounter battle and how it might play out. But what I find in encounter battle is because that's where it's located, that's where people tend to want to go, or they want to get in a position that overlooks this as quickly as possible, which is not a bad idea. But you spawn in encounter battles, you spawn, the red team will spawn here, and the green team will spawn here, okay? And the map, the encounter circles here, these no longer exist, right? So you can still do map control by putting people in defensive positions, and that's okay. But it's less important because you don't really have to hold this side of the map, because guess what? What overlooks this? This. In an encounter battle, the only thing you need to do is win the hill. If you win the hill, you really shouldn't ever lose a battle, an encounter battle. Not because you're going to cap out, because they can't cap. This hill has full visibility of the circle. There's nothing to hide behind. There, if you're an even average shot, you should be able to hit somebody that's not even a half of a map length away. I mean, it's a quarter of a map length away. That's how close you are. So really, there is absolutely no reason for you to be rushing down here, right? Now, I'm not saying you won't need some defensive positions there, because you don't want the enemy team just completely rushing to this side. But what if they did? What if as a green team we all went to the hill, we won the hill, and the red team came down here and won all of this, and they're just coming through the city, right? We don't have shots on them from the hill. Do we care? No, because they still can't win the game yet. They can't cap because we have won the hill. They can't go to the cap because anybody they put on the cap, we shoot. They also will have difficulty shooting us on the hill, as we will have trouble shooting them in the city. So the only person that can win this game is who? If we have equal number of tanks, nobody. It's a draw. The worst case is a draw. But what I'm telling you is no one will be patient enough for that. This team will feel like they've lost the high ground, and they will constantly try to push. They may even try to come up the high ground. They know they can't cap, and because they tried to put tanks on the cap and got shot, right? Now they're down tanks. Now they know it's not going to be a draw, and then that even mounts even more pressure for them to try to take the hill back from you. This hill, once it's won, can be held by a few tanks on either side. So as you can imagine, that's why I say an encounter battle is played much like a destroy the enemy battle, where there's no flags to capture, but you just have to kill all the other tanks. It's the hill. It's the hill, stupid. That's what wins this battle. In low tiers as well, high tiers as well. It's about the hill, and if you don't believe me, watch the next Himmelsdorf battle that you're in, and if it's an encounter battle, what does your team do? And I've seen people, and it's more times than not, the tanks all float, because they generally spawn you facing downhill, okay? And everybody wants to get up that speed and wants to get to their early positions on Himmelsdorf, right? And I'm not saying early positions on Banana Road are bad. You know, you getting down here and taking away Banana Road, not a bad idea. But you don't need the entire team to do that. Just a few tanks. You could have just a few tanks take up defensive spots here, here, and here. And guess what? You're going to win the game because you sent the majority of tanks, the other 12 tanks up the hill to defeat the 6 tanks that they sent up the hill, or let's say the other 9 tanks. Right? You still have numbers. You still have a greater degree, a chance of success of winning this hill and the castle than they do, right? And so in an encounter battle, you really need to consider that this map plays differently than you, I think, might play it in a standard battle. And that's the key. That's the key to Himmelsdorf. It plays different based on the tier that you are a little bit, because again, if you're a high tier, it plays different than low tier. And that's neither good or bad, guys. That doesn't mean if you're in a tier 10 and you're now have taken out your tier 3 and are just playing around and just having fun that day, and you're yelling at people to go to the hill because you know, and you're not wrong, that this map is won by winning the castle hill. You may not be entirely correct because you have forgotten or have not enough experience at the lower tiers to remember that this map plays a little bit differently at lower tier. You do have to have defensive position in a standard battle to hold the lower side of the map. All right. Hopefully this video was helpful. If it was, hit the like button. That's always appreciated. And if you like what we're doing here, hit the subscribe button. That helps the channel grow. And if you want to see when the next video drops, ring that bell. That gives you a notification when I post another video. All right, guys, good luck, and we'll see you on the next battlefield. Take care.